Welcome back to the Nevada Hoops Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Flayton, and it's finally here, folks. Tomorrow night, the college basketball season is kicking off. We've got the Sam Houston State Bearcats coming into Lawler. We will touch on that preview here in a couple minutes. First, we're just going to do just a little bit of housekeeping on what else is going on. So I'm pretty sure that we finally got the podcast uploaded to Apple. Holy cow. What? Wow. Don't have a whole lot of experience with Apple, and yeah, that was not fun. But I think we finally got it in there. The volume, getting a few people telling me that the volume's still a little bit low, so I cranked it up on my end. I know when I listen to it, it seems like the background noise and stuff is a little too much, and you can hear my breathing and stuff like that. So I don't know. Hopefully this will be a little bit better for you guys that were wanting to just get a few more decibels higher there. But like I said before, with my limited recording stuff here, we just kind of do the best we can. But so yeah, and then so just on a few things from the first 3 episodes that we dropped last week. Some corrections and stuff like that. I guess the big news. So on Friday it dropped with the addition of Grand Canyon to the Mountain West Conference. Huge news. We talked about how we had heard reports that was a possibility, and kind of talked about how important of an addition I thought it would be. So just super excited. Just really, I think, just solidifies us. Just kind of gets us back to that. We've got that base of 4 quality basketball programs right now, and with the possibility some of those teams on the bottom end can maybe rise up, and then also we'll see going forward with the possible future additions. We'll see if the Northern Illinois, possible Toledo football additions, if that happens here in the near future, we'll keep our ears open for that. And then I guess it'll be kind of interesting to see if here in the near future, if we start to see any rumblings on maybe a Wichita State or maybe a UC Irvine. Yeah, so I guess we'll just have to wait on that. And then one other thing on that 3rd conference prediction episode, just after I went back and listened to it, I think I was probably a little hard on Dagenhart from Boise State. I realized the guy's a good quality player, don't get me wrong, when I was kind of ripping on him there for his performance in the tournament last year against Colorado. Yeah, I know the guy's good. I guess I was just kind of trying to make a point that I'm not quite as high on him as the consensus, as I'm not quite as high on Boise as the consensus. So that's all I was saying. But so yeah, just guess I could have. I'm sure there was some people out there listening to me rip on him about his performance in March, and they're probably like, this is a Nevada Wolfpack podcast, the team that had the biggest collapse in the whole tournament. And yeah, there's probably some valid complaints there. But yeah, just one other thing on Boise, I guess, still have issues with the lack of depth. I don't think the defense is going to be that good, and I think they have some potential shortcomings with 3-point shooting. having really lost their two big 3-point weapons last year with Ogbo and Rice. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those other guys, they're better players that shoot in the low 30%, if they can get any of those percentages picked up, probably will play a big part in how good they end up being. And one other thing before we jump into the previews, so you'll hear me talk a lot about in the conference or in the realignment episode, we talked a lot about KenPom when I was talking about like a 5-year average KenPom of schools, So those are just the computer rankings. I'm not going to get into it too much, but you got KenPom, you got Net, Bart Torvik is this one, a new one that is, but not that Bart Torvik is new, but I believe this season is going to be the first year that the Bart Torvik rankings will be taken under consideration when they're picking the teams for Madness. So you'll hear me throw out those rankings a lot, and I'm just using them just to kind of give you guys a nice, a basis for where a team lands amongst the 364 or whatever it is Division I teams that we have right now. So so going forward, I guess let's get into the Sam Houston State preview. So they have a second-year head coach, Chris Mudge. He took over that program, well, obviously last year when their prior coach left to take the New Mexico State job. So that whole just disaster that was going on in New Mexico State, that old Sam Houston coach, he decided to leave there and go try to rebuild that New Mexico State program. So last year was Sam Houston's first year in Conference USA, and they won the regular season title. And they're bringing back half a dozen scholarship players, 5 of which were key rotation pieces. And then they're bringing in, they got a few experienced transfers coming in too. So this is just a really deep, experienced team. It's gonna give us a good test. So it sounds like their best player is a preseason first team Conference USA guy named Lamar Wilkerson. He's a 6'4" guard that scored almost 14 a game last year with 3.6 rebounds a game. Watched just a little bit of video on him. Looks like a really solid offensive player. I would imagine that we're gonna put we'll put Trey Coleman on him, and that'll be a very interesting watch for us to see how that goes. I mean, I think the world of Trey Coleman's defense. I personally think last year he was the best defender in the Mountain West. Should have won Defensive Player in the Year, in my opinion. Dude is just a lockdown defender. I would have confidence that he will be able to do a good job on Wilkerson, and if he can, that's probably gonna go far in us being able to get this one. Another guy to keep an eye on. They got a preseason honorable mention all conference guy named Cameron Hufner, and he's kind of like a stretch 4 finesse guy. He was a preseason player the year before off a really nice freshman campaign. And last year, apparently he was kind of banged up for him all last year, and just couldn't get healthy. And apparently they've got him healthy right now. And I think he's like 6'8", 6'9" kind of guy. Can shoot it, like I said, can shoot it from 3. Doesn't really seem like he likes to bang down low there, but so we'll see possibly him and guess we could see a little, maybe him and Nick could be squared up against each other a little bit there. And then they have, so some of you guys might remember Khalifa Sacco coming in. He's coming in from Utah State. They haven't really said that he's going to be their starting center, but he's either going to start or he's going to play big minutes for him. So, he didn't do a whole lot for Utah State last year. I mean, he did play sparingly, when they were in a matchup that was utilizing bigger players. He's respectable, so that could be a little bit interesting. But as far as so won the regular season last year. Most prognosticators have them between 1 and 3 in CUSA for this coming season. I believe there were 3 in the preseason coaches poll, Blue Ribbon, College Basketball Yearbook, which if you guys are into like the old school reading, like, reading a magazine, it is just an awesome book. I don't think you can get it on the newsstand. You got to order it, but can't recommend it enough. But they have them at number 2 in there. I've seen quite a few people that have picked them 1. So I mean, they're going to be right up there. They did just have a secret scrimmage a few days ago, or last week anyway, and it was against North Texas, who is a team that I'm actually really high on this year. I think they're going to be a little bit better than most are thinking. These guys are coming out of the AAC. Obviously, they've got a Bart Torvik of 87 right now, so pretty solid team, or expected to be a pretty solid team. Anyway, so North Texas tangled with the Bearcats here last week and had to hit a half-court buzzer beater to beat them 63-61. So, pretty interesting score right there. Pretty nice showing for Sam Houston State, in my opinion. I mean, I'm nervous. I'm nervous for these first 2 games, just because there's so much. We got so much. We just don't know what to expect from our Wolfpack as far as our rotations and who's gonna be playing and who's going to be playing how many minutes and whatnot. I guess with that, I mean, we kind of really haven't hit a whole lot on our team this year. We obviously did a deep dive into the incoming transfers on that second episode, and I know most of you Wolfpack fans out there are fairly familiar with our returning players. So I guess let's maybe just take a couple minutes, just kind of talk about what this is going to look like when we tip off at 7:00 tomorrow night. So we know that starting backcourt is going to be compromised of our 2 incoming transfers, Kobe Sanders, Xavier Dussel. We talked a lot about their games, so I don't think we'll go into a whole lot with them. Obviously, Tyler Rollison is going to be getting some good minutes in. I would imagine he is going to play more than just the point guard minutes when Kobe is off the floor. I would imagine you'll see Rollison run the point with Kobe off ball for I guess I don't know. That's one of the big questions. How many minutes is that? Are you going to see those two guys on the floor at the same time? It's going to be very interesting. And then obviously we got, you'd have to think Ducell is going to, play, I would say, at upper 20s, 28, 29 minutes a game, you would have to think. So, is Chuck Bailey, is he going to grab those other 11, 12 minutes there? As a backup too? That's going to be really interesting to see. Really excited to see Chuck Bailey this year. Just expecting some big things there. Obviously, we got Trey Coleman starting. He's going to play big minutes. Daniel Foster's going to play big minutes. Just two super switchable, just solid players. I guess I won't spend a whole lot of time on Coleman and Foster. Nick, obviously we got Nick will be starting at the 4. I guess probably the other big thing there is Justin McBride's obviously been the big surprise in the couple of scrimmages. So he's definitely in the rotation. How many minutes is he going to carve out? That's going to be really interesting. Really, yeah, it's going to be really fun to see what he brings. And then another little position battle that we kind of talked about a lot on the incoming transfer episode. What's the center rotation going to look like? Brandon Love, KJ Himes. I kind of gave my thoughts on, thinking that it was probably going to be Love would probably be the starter this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if Himes is out there on opening night as a little, I guess, tip of the cap to a guy who's spent 7 years in a Wolfpack jersey. I'm sure there's probably some people out there, right, that think like I'm making a joke when I say 7 years. Like some people that are tuning into this podcast who maybe like aren't big Wolfpack fans. But yeah, no, he's actually been here for 7 years. Welcome to modern day college hoops. So yeah, it's gonna be real interesting. Does Himes does he get that start with? Does Alford kind of split time with him, or does he just, or has maybe Love has just outplayed him this offseason and they go right to him? It'll be super interesting. I guess the thing is that, is you kind of, it's hard to imagine like both guys aren't going to play 20 minutes, right? At least if you're going off of what Alford has done with these teams in the past, he usually likes to play smaller for a good portion of the game, and we know how successful last year we were with Nick at the 5. So you'd be surprised that he wants to go away from that. So gonna be that's probably the position minutes battle that I'm anticipating the most, as far as getting a look to see how that coaching staff wants to break it up. But so we kind of just a little touched on the pack there, but we're at 19 minutes right now. We're definitely keeping this puppy shorter than what we had been. So I don't really have a whole lot more to add to that. Let's move forward to game number 2, Saturday, another 7 p.m. start against the Washington Huskies. Or our old friend Danny Sprinkle bringing his Huskies into town. When you're talking teams, but like when we're like sitting there, or we're not quite sure what to expect because we got a handful of new faces that are going to be getting big minutes. That's pretty much the whole Husky roster, right? Sprinkle coming in from Utah State. Washington, after they fired their coach last year, that team basically dissolved. And I think he brought back maybe like two holdovers. But obviously their big get was great Osobor, Utah State stud from last season. We're well familiar with him. I'm sure he's going to probably be their focal point again. So a name, when I was just doing a little research here, a name that kind of kept coming up is this Frank Kepnang center. He's like a 6'11" Nigerian big so he played against us last year in that early November game. Only played 12 minutes, didn't really do a whole lot. But apparently in that first month of the season, he put together some really nice games and was supposedly key in their upset over Gonzaga that they had. And anyway, the dude ended up getting injured and didn't play much for the latter part of the season. So supposedly he's back healthy and is like really looking good, and they're really talking him up like he's gonna be a really one of the better centers in the Big Ten this year. How funny is that, right? Saying Washington in the Big Ten, still gonna take a little getting used to, but so sounds like that's gonna be the starting front court. So they're obviously gonna be trying to bang down low. You're not gonna get any outside shooting out of that pair. So gonna be a real interesting matchup. As far as the backcourt, well, I guess Tyler Harris, I think he's kind of, sometimes they list him as a 3, sometimes a 2, but I mean, he's like 6'8". He was an all-freshman WCC guy last year for Portland. Really, really nice-looking player. They got him coming in. I don't know if he's going to start, but he definitely is going to be in the top 6 or 7 of their rotation. Really, really nice young player. That, like, as far as their guards, it kind of seems like they got 3 that are going to be the, either starting or top 6 guys. They got a Butler transfer. They got a University of North Dakota transfer and a Rice transfer. All 3 of these guys produced in the like low teens for point averages last year. And that's really, you see it sprinkle. It was kind of interesting how he put the roster together, right? I mean, so he brings Osobor in, and I don't know if it was because they end up putting the roster together like they did. If that was because they had to use a lot of their NIL money on Osobor, because we all heard that he supposedly got $2 million, right? So probably soaked up a big portion of that budget. So maybe they didn't have a whole lot left over, because you see like a lot of the other guys they brought in were just, not big names, but by any means, but just kind of guys that had put up points at lesser schools. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all comes together. And I guess that's one thing I'd like to say, right, is I'm glad we're playing this game when we are, because it's such a hodgepodge group. You'd have to think that there's going to be a learning curve there with all those guys trying to mesh together. So I think that's a good deal in that aspect, that hopefully they're not quite gelling like they're going to be later in the year. So yeah, they're as far as like their Ken Palm, they're 76, Bart Torvik 73, so they're right around there. Just for reference, so our Ken Palm is 73 and Bart Torvik is 60. So, those computer rankings have us just a hair ahead of Washington right now. As far as where they're picked for preseason, they were picked 15th in the preseason media poll. That's 15 out of 18 members that the Big Ten is compromised of now. Crazy, right? So yeah, and the Big Ten is just, it is just crazy how when you look at least from a computer ranking standpoint, like all the teams are in between like 75 and 10, right? So I mean, you're gonna have like an instance like where Purdue, the top ranked Big Ten team, is going on the road against, say, whatever the worst team in the Big Ten is, and you're probably going to be, Purdue's probably going to be just a very slight favorite in those games. So you're going to see just probably crazy parity. A lot of those top teams getting knocked off when they go on the road, especially with this new influx of these, with the old Pac-12 schools on the far out on the West Coast. I mean, it's just going to be crazy to look at that, watch that dynamic with those teams traveling back and forth and see how that affects performance. But yeah, so most people have Washington in that 14 to 18. Blue Ribbon magazine that I mentioned earlier, they're actually a little bit higher on Washington. They've got them at 10, and so you're thinking, oh, well, 10th. Well, most people are thinking 10th place in the Big Ten is you're in the tournament with that. So yeah, this team's no joke. It's gonna be a really fun game. That was a catalyst. The Pac getting that win at Washington last year, early in this season, was a catalyst that really propelled them to just a really nice non-conference overall schedule or overall record. So hopefully we can get the job done again there. Yeah, so I don't think we'll add too much more on that game. Sorry, my thing disappeared on me here. Pull back up there. Okay. All right. Sorry for that pause. Okay, we're going to just do a brief touch-up on the rest of the Mountain West games that I think are kind of key games, and then we're going to wrap this episode up. So Tuesday, just a few there. I wrote down 3 games that should be kind of interesting. You get North Alabama at Air Force. Now I realize there's not people out there that are getting the popcorn ready for that affair, but games like that are just critical when you're talking about where the Mountain West teams can get ranked in these computers when we're trying to get selected into the tournament come March, right? I mean, we've got to have that back end win games against these lesser opponents. We've got to get a win there when Bart Torvik, ranked 214 North Alabama, goes at Air Force, who's 261, which I think that's a little bit low. We'll get to that in a little bit, but so got to get Air Force to get one there. You got Western Illinois at San Jose State. Another thing, you got a really bad team coming into San Jose State. Got to get that one. And then Alabama State at UNLV. You would think that you're fine there, right? But you guys have probably heard, so DJ Thomas is out for UNLV for probably going to be at least 3 weeks. And if there's one player in the Mountain West I don't think there's another player in the Mountain West who's more important to his team than Deaton Thomas. So, and UNLV lost to Southern in that opening game. Pretty sure it was the opening game last year. And please don't let that happen again. Oh my goodness. So stay on your toes there. Moving into Wednesday, UC San Diego is going to Big Brother San Diego State. Last year, San Diego State only beat them by 1 point. Be ready, Aztecs. That's all I'm going to say. Look for UC San Diego to make that one closer than the experts think. Moving on to Thursday, Jacksonville State at Air Force. Same thing that I just said earlier, right? We need Air Force to get that one. Friday, you got Pacific at San Jose State. I would hope that San Diego, I'm pretty sure we're fine there. Probably shouldn't even have listed that one. But since Pacific was the worst team in the Western United States last year, they do have a new coach coming in, but I couldn't imagine it would be that much that's getting flipped there. Sac State at Fresno. That one's actually kind of interesting, right? I mean, holy moly. Sure hope Fresno can get that. New Mexico at UCLA. That should be a very interesting game. UCLA coming in with a Bart Torvik of 24, New Mexico 55. I am considerably lower on UCLA than what the computers are saying. So we'll see how that shakes out. Memphis at UNLV. UNLV is in serious trouble there without their point guard, even though Memphis is a dumpster fire. Charlotte at Utah State. That should be a nice, interesting game. And then you got Boise at USF. That should be a really interesting game. Boise at 67, Bart Torvik. San Francisco 83. And then then moving into Sunday, 2 games I wrote down. Tennessee State at Wyoming. Sure need the Pokes to get that one there. San Jose State at Hawaii. That should be a good matchup. Those are kind of the ones that look out there. We really need our lesser teams to not falter and pick up some wins there in the non-con. That's really going to help us down the road, conference-wise. So, only other thing I wrote down, check out the Nevada Sportsnet Mountain West preview show. Nice little half-hour episode. Really done really well by those fine folks over there. Check that out. Other than that, we're going to wrap this puppy up at 33 minutes. Still a little bit longer than I was hoping for, but I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. We will come back probably about a week from today with a little recap on these games that took place and then a preview of the games for next week. And that's going to do it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.